It's a Woman Wednesday on Liquid Lunch. It's my favorite day of the week, and it's even more favorite for me when I have two women instead of Frank. And Frank has the day off. He's tended to some family issues, some wedding planning, all that other good stuff. Dow Jones is up 200. When you got two powerhouse women like this on the show, we're not going to waste any time with that. Joining us again today is Teisha Powell. She's known to our audience. She's an attorney. She's a Republican social critic and conservative thought leader. And, of course, Fog City Midge joins us. She's a social media icon and also comes down on the conservative side. But, ladies, thank you both for joining me on this Women Wednesday. I'm outnumbered, which is rare on this show. So I'm going to let you two take over because the audience would probably rather see you and hear from you a lot more than me. But first things first, we've been talking on Liquid Lunch for a couple of months now about this whole opioid crisis and how, you know, many of these pharmaceutical companies. I actually got a complaint from Purdue Pharmaceutical, okay, because I was talking about an experience of mine when I was younger and I got put on some painkillers, some Vicodins, and we had another guest on who was saying that he was a U.S. attorney, and he got addicted to, you know, he's a veteran, he had a lot of injuries, he got addicted to painkillers, and it got his life so turned around that he wound up robbing banks because he was so desperate. And we were talking about how, you know, in my view, these pharmaceutical companies knew what they were doing. And Purdue Pharmaceutical actually sent a letter to John Bachman, who's VP of Content. He's my rabbi here at the station, and they wanted to know more details on why I was saying this, and it was my own personal experience. But now we see Johnson & Johnson, Teisha, apparently coming to a $570 million settlement over the opioids. What are the legal ramifications to them and all these other companies?
I think that what people need to understand is that President Trump is delivering on the opium crisis. He did say he'd punish the pharmaceuticals, and we're seeing that today. And I'm just surprised that Warren, Biden, and Sanders, they're just kind of like silent. They're, you know, this is the unfairness of politics. We should all celebrate that Johnson & Johnson are finally getting paid for all the people that they've hurt in the community. But there was no celebration from Warren, Biden, and Sanders because it boils down again to politics.
Midge, you got these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates like Johnson & Johnson, and $572 million may sound like a heck of a lot of money to regular people sitting at home. But when you're a multi-billion-dollar company, to me, $572 million sounds like a cost of doing business. They made so much money over 20, 30 years. $500 million is like $20 million a year. To them, it's nothing. It's a rounding error.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane that these companies are allowed to do this kind of thing. And you're absolutely correct. President Trump's never going to get the credit that he deserves for basically following up and doing what he said he was going to do with these pharmaceutical companies. But what's so insane is these are real people. These are people's lives that get completely destroyed, you know, and torn apart by these opioids. And so many people end up actually addicted to heroin because, as you pointed out, when they can't get their drugs, they go and they rob banks and they go to extreme measures because they're addicts. Or they end up getting hooked on heroin and then end up on the streets like we see all the time in San Francisco.
That's a great point, Midge. And I happen to hail from Staten Island, New York. They call it the Forgotten Borough. But in New York State, it's the #1 opioid death place in all of New York State. Okay? And I actually worked with some local legislators on this bill called the iStop program, where they put all the pharmacies and doctors on this big database, and it stopped people from doctor shopping, right? They go to one doctor today, my back hurts, and they get 30 pills, and they go to another doctor the next day. Because now they're in the database, it wouldn't let them put in another prescription because they see, oh, he just got one 2 days ago, so he can't get another one. But what's happened now in my town is all the kids are going to heroin now because it's cheaper, and they can't get it in their mom's closet because mom's aware, and they can't get it from some crooked doctor. So now we have a heroin problem.
You know, with the pharmaceutical company, they're just pushing poison up on us. And they know it's poison, and they know it's addictive, and they don't care. It's all greed.
I love the way Teisha said
greed.
they're pushing
greed.
the poison up on us.
But they are. It's poison. If you're killing someone, it's poison.
No.
And it's just greed, 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 more greed. And I'm just like, I think I'm baffled that Sanders, Warren, and Biden did nothing. Nothing when they were in the Senate. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And now they want to be the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
Right, we should hear something from them.
Yeah.
And you know what, Midge, we were talking about San Francisco. I bet you a lot of those folks that are living in these cardboard boxes and defecating in the street, I bet they're part of the opioid crisis, or at least that was one of the ways they started getting there. Absolutely. Is that an issue out there in San Fran, too?
Yeah, it is. And it's so crazy because the Democrats don't care. They don't care about people out on the streets that are living like this. They don't care about Americans that are becoming hooked on heroin. They don't want to enforce law and order. I see even in my own city, as well as other, Democrat-run cities across the nation, they basically have crippled the police and told them not to crack down on these drug dealers, to let them either out or with low, basically they aren't. There are places in San Francisco, I'll tell you, where people can openly sell heroin on the streets. The police officers know, and they're told not to do anything.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you know what? One of the main tenets of a socialist society is they want the people to need government. So it's fine. Let's get them hooked on drugs. Let's get them living in the street. Let's get them on social programs because then they won't speak out. Let's move to one other thing. Yesterday, Jeffrey Epstein's accusers appeared in court. And although he's allegedly dead, which I still don't believe, but if he is dead, I think he got murdered. Does it make any sense for the accusers to come in without the defendant there?
Well, the accusers need closure, so that's the good part. But back to suicide, death, Epstein, Clinton, I don't know. I'm so happy the DOJ is opening an investigation because how does... I just can't imagine Epstein would.
So you don't believe he hung himself?
Clinton, I just think there's.
Don't beat around the bush. Tell us how you really feel.
I just feel like President Trump tweeting about it. There's something with Clinton and Epstein and suicide.
Midge, what do you think? Do women need closure? Does it make sense? Or?
I think that all victims deserve their day in court, and they should be allowed to speak and tell their side of it, regardless of the fact that Epstein is dead or whether he's not dead, as you mentioned.
There you go.
But
now you're catching on, Midge.
Yeah, I just think that it's good for the victims. They need to feel heard.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first, and when you got two great guests like this, I tried to let them talk as much as possible, but they're waving at me that we have to continue the show. So we're going to take a quick break. And then we're going to come back to do what I love doing most. We're going to mix it up, bring in today Republican and Democrat Laura Fink, and our old friend Jen Kearns joins us to mix it up and demonstrate how purple we are on this show. You're watching Liquid Lunch. We'll be back right after this.